Hey, welcome back to Stay in Touch with Mariana Villareal. I'm your host, and today we have a very special guest. I'll call him Sam.
Yeah, sure. Sam works.
He is the CMO of Alliance Group, one of our biggest partners, and we're very lucky to be part of the Alliance Group. And thank you again for allowing us to do this podcast here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on as a guest. It's weird because I'm usually hosting a podcast, so it's actually really cool to get to sit on this side of the table.
Yeah. So today you'll be answering my questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some people tell him that he is the voice of God.
I can't shake that. Do a lot of voice work on a lot of the videos and marketing stuff that we do, and have earned that nickname somehow.
Yeah, I mean, you have a very unique voice. So now I'm like, when I'm watching the little videos that you guys put out, I'm like, oh, God,
There it is.
Yeah. So, one of the biggest topics that I always hear you talk about is living benefits.
Yes.
And us at InTouch Financial Group, we work a lot with health insurance.
Right.
And, one of the complementary things that we like to sell, like a combo pack, is a life insurance policy, whether it's a term or something permanent, and really emphasize on the living benefits.
I love that you guys do that, because I think that those two products should go hand in hand. Health insurance, obviously something that every American should own. Hopefully they have the opportunity to own. It's very important coverage to have for obvious reasons. What we do at Alliance Group with living benefits, the new kind of life insurance we call it, really that living benefits policy provides a client or a policyholder money when they have some severe critical or chronic illness or injury. That life insurance policy with living benefits can put money in that client's hand. So I think that the perfect kind of setup for protection for any client should be a health insurance policy for obvious reasons, and then complementing that a living benefits life insurance policy that will make sure that if, God forbid, cancer, heart attack, stroke, something like that happens, and you're covered with health insurance, but there's a gap between what health insurance is paying and what you actually need to pay for your care for those illnesses, that you have that policy that's able to help you bridge that gap. Another thing that people don't think about at all usually when they think about what would happen if I have a heart attack, stroke, cancer. Okay, well, let's say, God forbid, I have a cancer diagnosis. I have health insurance. Let's even assume that all of your bills were covered by your health insurance policy. Great. But what about the fact that you're missing work for the next 2, 3, 6 months, a year, maybe even more, getting treatment? How are you going to replace that income? What about all of your current bills that aren't medically related? That's another place that a living benefits policy can really come in and make sure that it removes that financial burden from that already really bad situation. And it just takes all the financial worries off the table and lets you focus on what you need to focus on, which is getting better, getting back on your feet, getting back to work, and getting on with your life.
Exactly. And I always tell that to every single person that I talk to. I mention health insurance pays your doctor bills. Yep. Life insurance pays your day-to-day bills, so that way you can get better.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the biggest thing is most people have like a relapse of whatever they have because of the stress of having to go back to work, because they still need to pay mortgages, cars, like they have a life.
Yes, exactly. And now I what I've noticed at Alliance Group, we do a lot of marketing videos. I'm sure you've seen many of them. Hopefully some of our listeners have seen some of those as well, where we take real clients that have had a heart attack, stroke, cancer, any of these things that living benefits covers, and they actually had a claim and got money from their living benefits policy. I have been lucky enough to interview dozens of these clients, and what I always hear from them is that, yeah, the money was great. Don't get me wrong. The money was amazing. But I think maybe just as valuable, or maybe even more valuable than the money, was the peace of mind that it brought, and kind of took that stress off of a body, because we know after your body suffers a heart attack, it's in crisis mode, right? Your physical body is fighting to recover from that traumatic event. If your body's fighting an internal cancer, your body is already under stress. We know that financial stress is a killer, by itself. So if you take financial stress and you add it into this equation where your body's already in a vulnerable position, that can be a really bad thing. So what a lot of folks have told me, people who have actually received this living benefits money, is that they think that just the taking that stress off of their plate allowed them to recover and allowed them to get back on their feet quicker just by removing stress from
exactly.
that.
And I think
equation.
There's a lot of misconception on what is a life insurance policy nowadays because we're so used to the traditional life insurance that maybe our grandparents had where you get money if you die. That's it.
Right. Or you never get money.
Oh, that's true.
Exactly. Your family receives money if you die, and that is important, right? Mm-hmm. The way we always say it is, I would say that for a living benefits life insurance policy, it works exactly the same way that your granddad's policy did if you pass away, and that's important. That we don't poo-poo death benefit at Alliance Group. We still think that death benefit is the most important part of any life insurance policy. It's making sure that your family has financial means. If God forbid the worst happens and you pass away, your family is taken care of financially. That should still be the main focus. But what I will also say is that we're in 2024 now, right? So in the same way that you wouldn't have a rotary phone hanging on your living room or your kitchen wall in the year 2024, you also should not have the traditional granddad's life insurance that only pays out if you die. It's 2024. There are better policies out there that for the same money, which is another thing that we have to remind clients, living benefits doesn't cost any extra. It's the same cost as an old kind of life insurance that only pays out if you die. But for the same money, you can have something that protects you if you pass away, the same way the old kind did, but also gives you so many more options financially if you, God forbid, have one of these curveballs that life loves to throw our way every now and then, right?
Yeah. And then another thing that I always hear is, I have my life insurance through my job. Mm-hmm. And those life insurance policies, good. I mean, you're not really paying for them, mm-hmm. but what happens when you leave? Right. Or what happens when you retire? Right. Or what happens if you get sick? Do those policies have living benefits?
In every case that I've seen, no. And I can't say none of them do, but I haven't come across one that does yet. Generally speaking, just like you're saying, anything that comes through work is going to be pretty bare bones. Also, what you didn't mention is it might not be enough, right? Mm-hmm. Usually it's
$25,000.
Right. Or maybe even if you're lucky, 1 to 2 times your salary, maybe, but that covers you for 1 or 2 years, right? That's not enough. What I always tell my clients and what I train our agents to talk to their clients about is they really have to consider whatever's coming through work as a benefit from life insurance, consider it just that. Consider it a cherry on top, icing on the cake, something that your job is doing for you as chipping in for your family if something happens to you. Treat it as that. You need to own your own life insurance that, as you said, goes with you wherever you go, whether you lose a job or whether you move on to a better opportunity. You never want to rely on whatever your work is doing for you to protect your family. You want to own your own life insurance policy that you pay for, that you own, that will go wherever you go, that you're in control of, that you can choose the benefits and features and coverage levels and your budget. Own that, and then whatever comes through whatever job you're in at the current time, that's icing on the cake. That's a cherry on top. That'll come as well. But own your own coverage and treat whatever comes through work as a bonus.
Yeah, exactly. One thing about living benefits that might be a little bit confusing to people, they're like, well, how do I get that money if I do get sick or I get diagnosed or... maybe I did work with an agent years ago and I have that in my policy, but I'm not really too familiar with it.
With the process. So we've, in my experience here at Alliance Group over the past 12 plus years, which is crazy to say, I've been able to see tons of these claims come through. So what basically happens if you have a living benefits life insurance policy, let's just take an example. Let's say I had a $500,000 term policy. And I were to suffer one of the covered triggers. So if you have a living benefits policy, there are 3 and sometimes more riders that come built into that policy. They don't add them separately. They come baked in. And that's the terminal illness rider, the chronic illness rider, and the critical illness rider. There's also some critical injury triggers that are sometimes included on that rider. Sometimes it's a separate rider. But basically, you're covered with all of these conditions in addition to death. So if something happens to me, and I were to suffer, say, a stage 3 cancer diagnosis, thoracic cancer, let's say, that $500,000 policy, at that moment that I'm diagnosed, I am eligible to go submit a claim. And the life insurance company is going to look at how severe is this illness. The more severe the illness is, the higher their offer will be, the more money that I'll be able to accelerate from my death benefit. The less severe the illness is, the smaller the offer will be, and then I have options. So stage 3 cancer, $500,000. I'm going to use round numbers here. It won't be a round number. It'll be a very random seeming number. But let's say that for a stage 3 cancer, I'm offered $250,000. That means if I choose to accelerate the full $500,000, I would be able to get $250,000 in my hands. What I'm essentially doing is accelerating that death benefit, meaning, if you were going to pay me this in 15 years, but I want it now, there's going to be a 15-year discount. In that case, I have an option. I could say, okay, accelerate my full $500,000, give me $250,000 tax-free. That money would be deposited directly into my bank account in a matter of weeks, and I would have that money and be able to use it on whatever I wanted, whether it's medical bills, whether it's my electricity bill, whether it's, take it to Vegas and put it on Black 21. If I wanted to, I wouldn't suggest anyone do that. But point being, it is your money to use however you want. There's no, indemnity, or you have to use it on bills or anything like that. Now, what I could do in that scenario is not take the full acceleration. I could choose to say, well, I want some life insurance left over, so what if I just take half of your offer and only accelerate half of my death benefit? And in that case, I would get $125,000 in my hands, half of their offer, and I would only accelerate half of my death benefit to get it. So I would have $125,000 in my hands that I could use for whatever I wanted, and I would still have $250,000 in that example of life insurance left over. Or I could choose to accelerate any number of it. It could be 7/10 of it or whatever. I could even say, give me $50,000 and let me know what I have left based on your calculations. Or I could choose to accelerate none at all. I could choose to say, you know what, I'm okay. I'm going to, everything's covered by health insurance. I don't need any money. I'm going to leave all that life insurance in place. And that's an option. And that is really what I need people to understand about living benefits, is that it gives you options. Mm-hmm. In the darkest time of your life, when, in my example, I've just been diagnosed with cancer. I got a lot of stuff going through my head. I got a lot of health worries. I've got a lot of life worries, family worries, and now I've got financial worries on top of that. What this living benefits policy did was it gave me options where I can access money. I can get that money in my hands. I can choose not to do it. I can choose to do half of it, whatever option I want. And again, if I'm with the granddad's old life insurance, I didn't die. Yeah. So I don't have any options, right? I'm living. Therefore, nothing gets paid out. My family might get paid. If I pass away from that cancer, they'll get paid $500,000 2 or 3 years from now. But with living benefits, you have that option. And I have options, something we haven't brought up yet. Let's say that my doctor is recommending some experimental treatment that is not covered by health insurance. If I'm got granddad's policy and I've got no money, I probably don't have what might cost $100,000 to go through this experimental cancer treatment, or even more. Mm-hmm. We've seen many cases where it's much more than that. Yeah. But now that I've got this living benefits money, I have all the options on the table for the best, most state-of-the-art cancer treatments, which there are some amazing treatments out there these days that can be really effective. And so it takes the financial stress off the situation. It also opens up the treatment options and puts everything on the table.
Personally, I have 2 life insurance policies.
That's good.
And they always ask, why? You're so young. I mean, I'm not. I might look a little younger than what I am.
You're not going to tell us how old you are. Right?
No, but...
You're old enough to not tell us how old you are. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I got it when I was even younger. And mm-hmm. So they're like, what's the point? You still have a long way to go. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're in your 20s, right? Exactly. So I'm just like, an accident's called an accident for a reason. Nobody prepares for it. You're not going to say, oh, today I'm going to have an accident.
Right. No. And the leading cause of people in that age group, in the young adults, is accidents. It's car accidents. It can happen. It happens every day.
Exactly. We're out in the streets.
Right. Yeah. You're out there,
4 a.m.
You're doing the stuff I was doing.
We should be at home sleeping. But, we're young. We want to live life. We want to. But then let's say you are 21 and something happens to you. Not because it was your fault, but a reckless driver.
Right.
Now you're paralyzed. And now you're back living at home with your parents. Now who has the burden?
Right. And
your parents.
Exactly. And these are the things that, not all young kids have the foresight that you have and that I had. I also had my first life insurance policy when I was very single and my 26 years old, doing those things that you were just talking about. I was probably out a little late, the things we do in our 20s. But I saw the value. Mine was a cash value life insurance. So I saw the value of saving and tax advantage saving and compound interest over time. And the life insurance kind of came with it. So a lot of young adults, they're probably not buying term policies. They're probably out there looking at those cash value. And that is so smart. It's so smart. That same policy that I bought when I was 26 years old, I believe, it's still going, and it's growing this amazing amount of cash value. It also is serving as permanent life insurance with living benefits, which again wasn't the reason I got it, but it's been nice to have. And then of course when I met my wife, we get married, we buy a family. Then I first of all increased that policy, but also bought a nice big fat term policy because now I have people relying on me for my income. I have a family. I think that it's very smart for kids. When I say kids, in their 20s, even in their early 30s, before they've started a family, when they think I don't need life insurance. The other thing we didn't mention is that life insurance is by far the most affordable when you are young, and you can lock in those costs when you're young, and they pay dividends for when you're older. The older you get, the more expensive life insurance gets. So if you can lock it in when you're young, that's just smart to do. If you know you're going to get it eventually anyway, why not get it now while it's cheap? Lock in that health rating, lock in that cost, and do your future self a favor.
Yeah, because once you feel like you're about to kick the bucket, now it's not considered, it's really hard to get approved for a life insurance policy. Totally. And you're most likely going to have to go towards final expense for funeral things. So anybody that I come across, I'm like, do you have life insurance?
Right.
And when something happens to somebody, like my mom comes and tells me, oh, so-and-so is going through da-da-da-da. I'm like, do you know if they had life insurance? Mm-hmm. And they're like, I don't think so. And it might sound insensitive at the moment, but
I know exactly what you mean.
I'm just like, why are people not preparing? I feel like GoFundMe used to be, hey, I want to start this project. And people are like, oh, I'll back you up.
Right.
But now it's to pay medical bills.
It's become the safety net for America's failing healthcare system, which is not at all what the people that started GoFundMe intended for it to be. I cannot remember the stat off the top of my head, but it's something crazy. Like 60% of all GoFundMes are now medical GoFundMes. It's crazy. And it's sad. You mentioned something a little bit earlier talking about people. You get these calls. You get these people. I get these calls. It's always a little heartbreaking because people do wait till the last minute to get life insurance, and they see the value of it. And by the time that they're, sick and old, that's when they see, oh, I really need this. Why didn't I do this before? Can I do it now? And the answer is many times, I'm sorry, you can't. And we might be able to get something very bare minimal in for you. It's still going to be really expensive. Mm-hmm. But it's those people who see the value in it and want it the most. And it's funny because the older people get, the more they're going to need life insurance, the more they realize they need life insurance, the more expensive it is. So it's like what I always try to tell people, I'm sure you do as well, if you're thinking about life insurance, you thought to come to me and ask a question about it, you need to be getting it in place. That's the first step, is just realizing and being smart enough and having enough forethought to think, should I get some life insurance? Like, yes, you should. If you're wondering, you absolutely should, because
This is the sign.
Right. I've never come across anybody who regretted getting a life insurance policy in place. Mm-hmm. I can't think of a single story.
If you think about it, we literally buy insurance for everything. You buy a new TV, insurance, just in case there's a lightning storm.
And sure, I'll add in the little insurance policy, right?
$50 a month, or I think it's a year, like every year. Yeah. And then you add insurance for your phone. For some shoes. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't understand why $20, $30, $50 a month, which I used to spend on coffee, and I'm so ashamed. And I used to spend that weekly.
Oh my goodness!
I had an addiction.
Starbucks, man, it'll get you.
Well, yeah, quite a bit of different coffee shops. I was just like, ugh, I was addicted. But then,
Well, it's just funny how fast $50 can float through your hands these days. I mean, with inflation, man, I mean, it's crazy. We talk about like a cup of coffee a day, but I mean, I blow $50 accidentally, like buying 3 things at the grocery store. You know, like my wife's literally, I think last week my wife sent me out. We are out of cream, we're out of sugar. We need coffee in the morning. And I went and somehow I end up spending like $20 on these 2 ingredients that I need for coffee. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, and forget about Amazon. It has me on a chokehold.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm just like, oh, I need this. Amazon.
Right.
Next day delivery. And,
it's so easy.
all the subscriptions that you have, because now it's all about streaming without commercials.
Yeah.
And you're willing to pay that extra $10.
Get these commercials out of my life. Yeah.
Exactly. So why not
watch some commercials and buy some life insurance?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I know my family's history, medical history, and I am self-aware of where I live, what has happened. I like to travel, you know. I put myself, unfortunately, in certain situations because I like bungee jumping, skydiving.
Oh, wow.
I'm adrenaline junkie.
You're that person that they ask that question for on the life insurance application.
They do. But I used to do it quite a bit.
Like, calm down a little bit in your old age.
I'm like, I get a panic attack now. But if you are late 20s, early 30s, and you get 30 years of coverage, like my mom got diagnosed with cancer at 40. And so thank God at that time she was learning, you know, a lot about natural remedies and things like that. So she is cancer-free now.
Oh, thank goodness.
And I was able to get her a life insurance policy even after she had a cancer.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so we did get something permanent. And then all of my grandparents have passed away before the age of 70. So I'm like, you know, my family doesn't have a good track record. So I might be going that same route.
It's good to pay attention to those things, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but science tells us that it could increase the likelihood of it happening. And so those are all opportunities to make sure that you got your eyes on the horizon, that you're thinking about your future, and that you're locking in this protection while you can.
Exactly. And you know, some people are like, oh well, what if I have a pre-existing condition? Like, mine's not technically not pre-existing, but I donated a kidney a couple years ago when I was 21.
Wow.
And one of my first questions for the first person that came up to me about life insurance was, I donated a kidney. Does that take me out? Like,
right.
You know, they're like, well, we're going to have to look at it. So many people went to look at it. But as soon as I said I only have one kidney, they all kind of was just like, never mind. So obviously I got licensed.
Yeah, you're like, I'll look into this myself.
And then I'm like, yes, I qualify. What the heck?
That's fantastic.
And I actually qualified as preferred because as a kidney donor, in order for you to qualify to even donate, your health has to be like top-notch. Exactly. Yeah. And if something were to happen, you know, I will be first in line for a transplant. Like, I don't have to wait years and stuff because I donated.
Because you donated.
But ever since I donated, everybody has told me, like, if you ever need one back, let me know. I'll donate to you. And I'm like, okay. So if you have something going on, you know, I still suggest people to ask the question.
A lot of people just assume, I can't qualify for that. It's crazy how much people are willing to just, I probably can't afford it. I probably can't qualify. I'm not going to ask the question. Just ask the question. Ask the question. Yeah. You know, you've got professionals you can reach out to that are there to answer those questions for you. And I don't like to hear that you had to go to the extremes to get your license yourself to solve your own problem. That should not be the case. Shame on all of those professionals that kind of blew you off. They missed an opportunity, right, to have a client. But I like the way that it turned out. People, we do Life Insurance Awareness Month every year. And one of the stats that just keeps coming up is how much people overestimate the cost of life insurance. It's crazy. It's over 100%. People think it's more than twice as expensive as it actually is. And so that stops them from asking the question or talking to a life insurance professional or getting a quote. which is crazy. So that's part of the awareness that we have to kind of put out there is, look, if you're thinking you need life insurance or it pops in your head, find a professional. I'm sure you'll be able to find one. Definitely call our folks at InTouch. They'll be able to help you out. And just get a quote and ask a professional the questions. It is not going to be as expensive or hard to qualify for as you think the statistics say.
Exactly. And a lot of our listeners are probably going to be some of our health insurance members. And, subsidies can help you to a certain extent. Unfortunately, like the lower incomes you have, the more help you're going to get for health insurance. But there's quite a bit of our members that have very high deductibles because they actually end up paying $100 to $300 a month just for basic preventative care.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, isn't it cheaper for you to just pay your consultation $150 when you go? And they're like, no, but what about if there's an emergency?
Right.
And then I'm like, well, what about if you do this instead? And then I turn in a life insurance policy. And I'm like, in case of that emergency, here you go.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, I didn't even know I could do that.
Yep. And now you have life insurance, by the way, which you needed as well, and you've got these living benefits as well. It's a puzzle piece that's missing from too many people's preventative kind of planning, is having that life insurance policy. And again, it doesn't have to be a huge life insurance policy. I mean, even a $250,000 term policy might cost you, $25, $30 a month. If you can get that in conjunction with a health insurance plan, whatever fits in your budget, you're going to be so much better protected in so many more scenarios, including if you pass away. Life insurance is something, I think life insurance and health insurance is ideally something that everybody should own. The only thing that should stop you from earning, from having both of those is the inability to get one of them, whether it's because of your health or because of your budget. But you can work with a professional and find ways to get both of these in your lives. And I'm really glad that you're working with clients. And I think that all health insurance agents should learn about living benefits and learn how to provide that solution because it's so important.
Exactly. And for those who believe that getting life insurance is bad luck, it's not. We're still alive.
Alive and kicking. Exactly. In fact, if you're one of my, I think I've been in this industry for, as I said, 12 years. Obviously, I have a full-time job as the CMO at Alliance Group, but I do have my license and I do sell. I actually wrote a policy last night. It's crazy how my clients actually have the very best luck ever because I have, I think, almost 200 clients now over the past 12 years. No death claims. Right, so that's awesome, and only one living benefits claim. So that's pretty great. And that one living benefits claim is a crazy story. It was actually a very close friend of mine who bought a policy. I have a whole presentation that I do about this guy, Bobby. It was like pulling teeth to get him to finally take the policy, and he finally did, and then actually suffered a heart attack like less than 2 years later and got $425,000. From that policy. So it's amazing when it happens so far. I mean, Bobby notwithstanding, all my clients have been very, very lucky, which I like. But it's nice to know that those living benefits are there and they were there for Bobby.
Yeah. I mean, I've come across situations because we advertise so much and people call us for quotes. And I'm like, okay, we'll save my number, And then one day I get a phone call from the wife of somebody. They're like, hey, are you Mariana? I'm like, yes. My husband has your number saved as Mariana Life Insurance. And I'm like, oh, yeah. We were talking about some options for him. And then she asked, did he get anything? And I'm like, no, he said he was going to think about it and talk to you, but I haven't heard back. And so then she's like, oh, well, he passed away. Ugh. And I just wanted to see if there was anything. And I had him saved under my quotes. And I was like, dang it. Mm-hmm. And he was looking at $500,000 to $700,000. And so I'm just like, and for him, because he was still pretty young, he was around 38. Mm-hmm. He was looking about maybe like $75 to $85 a month. Ugh. And he couldn't just like rip the bandage and get it. He had to
think about it and talk about
yeah.
it.
And one of the things that I've always heard about like from agents is if you say you love me, get a life insurance policy.
Right.
Because how are you going to leave me?
Right.
And then now I have to handle all of this stuff by myself financially. Yep. And like with a broken heart.
Right, exactly. You can talk the talk. How about walk the walk and do the thing? You know, no one loves to buy life insurance. It's actually, you know, previously, before living benefits came along, life insurance could be described as the most unselfish thing that anyone could possibly do, because you're literally going through this process and paying this premium every single month, guaranteed that you will never see a penny of benefit from it, right? Now with living benefits, we can actually say, you're checking that box for protecting yourself and protecting your family, doing the thing that you should do if you really love your family, right? You also could benefit from this policy in a big way if you survive one of those major illnesses and you're able to get money in your hands. It's always horrible when you have those you have that's a very stark example of like somebody who was right there. They had done 90% of the work and just couldn't rip that Band-Aid off. And unfortunately, his wife is paying for that and will continue to pay for that decision that he made. It's tough. Actually, that sale that I was just telling you about that I made last night, it was a very similar sort of story. I had a wife and a husband. The wife was the first person that got in touch with me. I sold her a term policy, no problem. We were always talking about the husband, and he was busy, you know, and was like, I'll get around to that. You go ahead and get yours in place. I'll do it later. And so I literally this was back in 2020, I was following up with her, and I have these text messages that I can see where I'm following up about Doug. Hey, is Doug ready to sit down and talk? We've got yours in place. We need to get it on Doug. When is he going to be able to, you know, meet? And she kept being like, he's out of town this week for work. Actually, he's changing jobs. We need to wait a little bit more. Doug passed away, like 3 months after our last text. And it's just one of those things that happens in this industry. She was the one that called me yesterday. Obviously, she's still, you know, she's mourning. She's 2-3 years on from him passing. She has her 2 young boys that she's raising. She called me last night about a policy on her younger brother who's moved in to help her with the kids. So we're getting a policy set up for him. But it's just, it's that thing in this industry. You wish that you could just pound it into everybody's heads, like, if you're wondering if you need life insurance, you do need it, and it is affordable, and just get it in place.
Exactly. So, I don't know how many different ways we can tell you guys, get a life insurance policy. Do it for yourself. Do it for the people you love the most.
It's that financial foundation. Whatever your plans are, we all have plans and dreams financially for ourselves, for our family, for what we want to build, the futures we want to build. We always describe life insurance as that foundation. If you don't have the foundation set, that foundation of protection, everything you build on top of it is going to topple, right? Mm-hmm. You could do the most amazing job at saving in your accounts and squirreling money away and being thrifty and not spending $50 a week on coffee and building this whole beautiful castle of financial wellness. And if you don't have life insurance and something happens, the whole thing comes toppling down, and your family is still likely to be in a financial pinch. Get that life insurance policy in place. Make sure you're protected. Build on that strong foundation. That's the best way to go about it.
And that is a good way to end it. Honestly, thank you so much.
Of course.
I really do hope that all of our listeners take what they need from this podcast. And, we want you guys to stay in touch with what is really true about it. Not go, listening to, don't get it.
Right.
Like, don't listen to your friends that are so negative about it. And they're like, you're too young, don't do it. Or you don't need it. That's a waste of money. You're never going to see it. Remember, we spend money, unfortunately, in the United States like crazy on small things.
On things that are an actual waste of money.
Exactly. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
For taking the time to sit with me. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to anybody in my team at InTouch Financial Group. And I'll see you guys on our next episode. Thank you for joining.